understand and never let me down. All I need is one friend, get me through the day. One friend who never goes away. Only one friend to understand and never let me down. Never let me down.
Want to know what's happening locally? Here are some great Franklin websites to keep you informed. The town's official calendar is at franklinma.gov/calendar. You can also visit franklinmatters.org. Community radio in the public interest. This is WF.
Recording in progress.
You hear PA on?
No. There it is.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody. It being 7 o'clock, welcome to the Franklin Planning Board. This meeting is audio and video recorded. It's also on Zoom, and the call-in number for Zoom is 929-205-6099, and the code number is 823-756-46781. Our first item of business, we'll do general business first, which will be letter A, which is an 81P for an A&R for 585 King Street. If I can go to Amy with Department of Planning, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 585 King Street has submitted an 81P A&R to combine 5 parcels for a project that was previously approved by the Planning Board. It's located in the Industrial Zoning District. As far as combining all the lots, they do meet the requirements. I provided kind of a map, kind of my own map to outline the 5 lots on there, and they do have the plan that meets this map for tonight.
And I just had one quick question. All these parcels were the original parcels we saw during the planning process?
Correct.
They incorporated it, and now it's just making it,
Yes.
formalizing it. Okay.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the 81R for 585 King Street.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next item would be limited site plan for 461 West Central Street.
Good evening. Amanda Cavalieri with Gary and Howland, here on behalf of 3 Restaurant. So we were here last year, and they had done an outdoor patio, which was a great addition to the restaurant. And we're here tonight to apply for just a authorization to construct a trench drain that would go around the back side of the patio to improve the drainage out there. Right now, when the patio was constructed, it has a stone barrier where the trees are planted on the inside of the patio, and when it rains, the water comes across and infiltrates into that stone area, and it's adding too much water to the trees, so they're not thriving. So we figured if we can add the trench drain and redirect the water back up into the system and into the piping system, that can minimize some of that impact to the existing trees. The other thing that the applicant is looking to do is add 7 light posts to the parking area to improve and enhance safety out in that parking lot. It's a little bit dark in the evenings, and to minimize any type of incidents out there, we'd like to have some lighting out there also. So it'll have the electrical trench that'll run along the perimeter of the parking lot, and we've highlighted the 7 light posts out there.
just go to... Mike, you weren't on this one, right?
Yes, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman. I
no,
did
my
have a couple
apologies,
quick
you
comments.
were, yep. Mike, if you wanted to comment on these?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. For the lighting, we don't see any issues with adding lighting to the parking lot in the rear there. In regards to the trench drain, it's just to address the existing runoff there, no impervious area or anything like that. We just make a recommendation that if you're going to use a trench drain, to just pass it through a deep sump hooded catch basin first before it's tied into the drainage system, just to add a little more water quality improvements there. And then just noting that between the catch basin and the manhole, it should be reinforced concrete pipe.
You all set with the reinforcement, man?
Yep.
Okay. I just had a quick question. The lighting, are we gonna have any spillage on the adjoining lots?
So
Yeah, I just,
3 Restaurant, there is a little bit of light spillage, but 3 Restaurant is up higher than Max Roast Beef, which is down below. So we don't see it as being excessive lighting, plus based on operations of business hours, and it's not a residential development. We've asked for, well, we haven't asked for one, but we would like to ask for one based on the recommendations from the planner.
and that was with the left side of the site, if I remember correct?
It's if you're looking at it from the street, it's the front right, I believe, correct?
Oh, I thought I saw it on the left side
Was
too.
it on the
That's
left
what-
side?
Yeah, that's why I'm
That's
asking.
what I
I just,
Yeah, if it's on the left side, that's the other strip mall.
correct, okay.
Chairman, can I just comment on that lighting? So, to the chair, Amanda, understanding that there's not a residential use on that left-hand side there, looking at it, it does seem though that it's a tad bit high. I mean, it's at,
It's 1 point something.
it was 5.58 in some spots and 2.0, 3 point something, sorry, can't really read it too well.
3.17.
Yeah,
No,
it just,
it's
if you can do a little bit,
We could do some shielding.
yeah, I think that would be a good idea, even if it isn't residential, I still think that's a little bit of excess that could be reduced. Just bringing it down,
Right up in here.
yeah.
Yeah, in the back left corner, it's
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
high.
I
The
mean,
photometric plans are, or the programs are a little, they're tough to judge.
yeah, I think,
Because they don't take into account fencing and elevations, and it's really just light posts and.
so those 3, 5s, 2s, you know, even the 1s could.
Right on the property line.
well,
Yeah, so we
even
can put some
over the
shields on
property
those
line.
lights.
Yeah, just bring those down more towards the,
Yep.
I mean, are these, what, like 18-foot poles? 16, 18 footers?
20.
That's why I couldn't read the,
20 feet.
20.
20?
yeah.
Yeah.
up there. I couldn't read it, smudged out.
You can bring them down if you need to, as well. But again, it was more for the safety
Sure.
out there.
I think if we can,
Yeah, we have 20 foot.
I think if you can cut back on this spillage, I think that'd be much
Yep.
appreciated.
We can do that.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any comments or questions?
I'm all set.
Jake? No? Amy, you all set?
Yeah, I'm outside. Actually, you guys touched on my point. I was just concerned about the light spillage. Just for the record, I didn't ask Beta to review this, has a limited site plan modification, and there was no conservation involved in this either.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve with the condition that light spillage is brought down to close to 0 at the property line with some shielding.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, and the concrete pipe.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Plastic you can use at the connection points for the manifolds.
Okay,
Okay?
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our next item would be a initial public hearing for 15 Liberty Way.
Make a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
Second? All in favor? Aye. I guess we'll go to I'll go to Amy first. Amy, if you could give us a run-through, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have a site plan modification in front of us for 15 Liberty Way. They are requesting to extend the pavement, the existing driveway, and to be used for truck parking. They're not required to file with the Conservation Commission, and we have received letters from Beta, DPW, and Fire. Couple comments that I had was I know that the plans only just show the additional parking area that they're proposing, showing the existing building, so we see the access and the way around the building, and it coincides with the site, providing curbing details for the site as well. There wasn't any markings for the pavement, how many parking spots are there going to be, and proposed to the existing building snow storage, and I think that the fire was looking just for some truck access. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what, we'll just, we'll continue on. I'll go to Mike with DPW first, and then I'll circle back to you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So we reviewed the packet, the submitted package, and had a couple of comments, mainly relative to the stormwater design. Just I'll go over a couple of quick ones. In addition to the Mass DEP stormwater standards, the project also must comply with the local town stormwater management bylaw standards we have in there. The applicant does address the peak rate of stormwater runoff from the site, making sure it doesn't increase any stormwater runoff, but they also need to address the total stormwater flow, the volume leaving the site. That needs to be addressed. The proposed infiltration system appears to be designed to sit below the seasonal high groundwater level, and that was based on the test pit information that was provided. While the design includes an impervious liner surrounding the system, we're concerned with the water tightness of that liner over a long term, and any potential contamination to the groundwater where it's the system sitting within the groundwater itself. And then also the designer indicated that no recharge is being proposed due to the poor soil conditions, and we just note that on the test pit data, it did show that it appears that the existing soil is a sandy loam, which would be able to infiltrate some groundwater there. That's some infiltration.
Okay, good, thank you. Gary, I'm gonna hang tight for you for a second. I want to present, because I know some of that stuff may pertain to both what you and Mike already spoke of as well. So if you just want to introduce yourself and the
Absolutely.
project itself, please.
Good evening, Daniel Campbell, Level Design Group. I actually hopefully won't even get to Gary tonight. So what we have before you is we are proposing a parking lot at the rear of the existing 15 Liberty building. We've addressed some of Amy's comments. As you see, this plan gives information about the building, the access, our proposed pathways around the building, overall site, and things of that nature. We've also provided a photometric plan and a landscape plan, which was some of the questions that Amy had, and we've addressed internally some of the drainage concerns. However, one thing Amy said, and the reason I'm going to be brief with our presentation tonight, is I've met Brika on site, and she feels that the existing detention basin is a wetlands under town jurisdiction. That being said, it is a drain basin inside of an existing drainage easement. It's fully lined with riprap, but we are going to go through the steps. We retained Goddard Consulting to go and evaluate the basin, as well as the tributary swale to the basin from the abutting properties. And we're going to file with the Conservation Commission and get that determination prior to making any modifications. So the reason we don't have responses to comments, though Beta has commented 2.5 weeks ago, is exactly that. We don't want to respond and then have to go back and start the process over again, knowing that Conservation Commission, the conservation agent, has asked us to move forward and do that filing. Though we think we took the appropriate steps, being that it's an existing basin, being it's an existing swale, everything's riprap lined. we're going to follow the process clearly within the town. A few things that I'd like to address. Some of the comments that were made have to do with landscape buffer, especially to our residential zone to the side. As you can see on the existing property comes all the way out to here. There is an existing landscape buffer between the parking lot and the proposed, or the existing property line greater than 15 feet in width. And to supplement that, we have proposed a landscaping plan adjacent to the parking lot itself, some shrubbery on the lower side, some larger tree species on the portions as we get closer, as well as the higher elevations. And then towards our industrial neighbors, again, some shrubbery and some tree species as well. What we're trying to do is we're trying to buffer the upper and the lower. The DPW has a sewer easement with active sewer line that runs through that area along the back of the site. That's this cut grass area here that actually comes off property and goes to the roadway to our east. So what we're intending to do is exactly that. We're intending to expand truck parking. We will address fire department comments, we will address Mike's comments and Gary's comments, all as they stand after we're done with the conservation process.
So Gary, that's why unless you wanna,
No, I
think we
really
just
didn't want
hang
to add to
tight.
that, yeah.
yeah, I think we just hang tight with all your comments unless somebody has question in reference to it, because he's gonna have to respond back to it otherwise. But, go ahead.
Guess, I'm sorry if I'm not seeing it. Could you show your photo plan that you had there?
Sure.
The entirety of the building is shown there, and then your site that you're working on is that green forested area in the back?
Yeah.
So then your actual existing conditions plan is not the entirety of your site?
Correct. The existing conditions is not the entirety. Where we're working is inside of this white hatched area.
What are our actual requirements for submitting a site plan? Do we need the entirety of the site? Because that's not what I'm seeing here, and then your statement that Amy said submitting that, is that what are we accepting that? Is that, what's our process?
The board can determine that. It does require that the entire site is shown on the plans.
Which is not currently what's submitted.
What it requires is that the entire site is shown on the plans. It does not require a detailed existing conditions plan of the entire property. So we've done survey from the rear of the building to the property line, from property line to property line. So we've surveyed the area that we plan to work within. We are providing the background data for the existing building, but having an individual client survey 50 acres for something like this, in our submission to Amy, we had submitted just the back. In our response, we will submit the aerial photo along with overlays detailing what's there, that none of that information will be touched. But we've also evaluated it based upon the impervious space, impervious cover for the zoning.
That help you?
So,
Without me, I can't remember what the number was. What was the additional impervious that you were adding, or what percentage did it put you at?
So we have our building coverage, we're still far below. Our percentage as we are proposing is 57.8% of the total site area. So we're still well below the 80% as well.
Jen, you had a question?
It would just be, to just, through the chair, to add on to what Beth is saying, even if you don't do a full survey of the site, I would like to graphically see the full site in its entirety so that we can get a better understanding of overall impervious existing to proposed. Because if this is the entire site that I can somewhat from Google Earth and GIS and
Sure.
et cetera, come up with is your property, and looking at what is assumed to be impervious versus not currently and what is being proposed, at first glance doesn't seem to align with the percentages that are being shown on this chart. So I'd love to see a graphic indication of what is currently impervious, what is being proposed as it relates to your overall site and the area takeoffs associated with those.
Sure, and what we've done, not only is this aerial photo, I thought it was a better graphic. We've highlighted everything, we've measured the building, we've placed it in based upon this graphic. And we will have an existing conditions plan that has the existing loading docks, spaces, edge of pavement. We are just not providing topography throughout the entire property. We always detail the property line internally to ourselves. It just doesn't happen to be what I submitted. So we're making that change as well. So this is an existing conditions plan that's overlaid onto the aerial for reference and having to do with this conversation because we weren't moving forward tonight. The new package will have an existing conditions plan, it just won't have topography throughout.
I think that's kind of what I was asking, so that makes sense.
Okay.
Jay, any questions?
No, I think it's a nice
Rick? Actually, I just a real quick question, the underground basin?
Yes.
You gonna put a liner,
We did.
40 mil? Is that
Sure.
gonna be like two-piece and welded?
So usually it's a welded seam liner. For something like this, we will respond directly to Mike's comments as they pertain.
Okay.
DEP allows you to actually dewater the groundwater surrounding the basin, but under Franklin standards, we wouldn't be permitted to do that, which is why we applied the liner. We do have one further comment to address for Mike having to do with that, so we will do that in time.
Okay. And lighting, you touched upon the lighting as well?
Sure.
Okay.
So lighting, just real quick, we did prepare a photometric plan associated with the comments from the fire department having to do with pathways. So we did place 2 light fixtures in the middle of the site and 2 light fixtures adjacent to the driveway to the building. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide access aisles for the fire truck, standard Franklin fire vehicle, through the property, and then parking spaces throughout. The parking spaces will be, standard delineated parking spaces just for a truck trailer.
And in our letters, you just mentioned fire department, you're gonna be able to take care of what fire department was looking for too as well?
Absolutely.
Their letter?
Yep.
Okay. And that'll be on the next set of drawings as well?
It will.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got the ball rolling, it's just a matter of seeing what conservation is gonna
It
have
took
you,
us,
and then it's gonna trigger that thereafter.
correct. It took us a little while to be on site with Brika. As this application came in, we just started getting rain and snow, and we wanted to walk out there with actual foliage so we could see what was on the ground. We kept getting delayed by about a week. We did meet about a week and a half ago. Scott started his work today.
Okay. And I just had one quick question. The purpose of the new parking lot is just for
Trailer storage.
Just trailer storage?
Yeah, it's
No contaminants or anything being stored in the
Nope.
trailers, dry storage, and fire
It's-
department knows that as well?
correct.
How many trailers?
I will show you on our next plan,
Okay.
once I put the fire truck turning path in there.
Okay,
We're hoping for approximately 50 additional trailers.
okay. Are they gonna be long-term or short-term?
They're short-term. It's movement in and out of the building. Hopefully, it's trailers coming to the doors in due time rather than somebody stacking off-site. Currently, some of those trailers will stack at a highway rest area or something of that nature. They'd come here directly, they'd wait, they'd come to a door.
How many doors you putting in, you said?
We're not putting in any doors.
Oh, all right, I thought you said.
No doors, no modifications to the building whatsoever.
Quick question. On the trailer storage, and moving them back and forth, is that gonna be done during business hours only?
Yes,
Because you have adjoining neighbors. on the other side.
absolutely. They, fully compliant with the existing site plan approval and hours of operation.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Amy? No? Is anybody in the audience or in Zoom land that has any comments, any comments, questions? I don't see any hands up. Okay, so it sounds like it's gonna be Conservation Commission, and you're gonna rework everything back and still get the updated set of drawings for us?
Correct.
And
in enough time, which is a week and a half earlier than your next meeting, so I'm hoping for about 6 weeks from today.
Okay. Yeah. Amy?
So if you're looking at about 6 weeks, you're probably like May 8th.
Probably.
Does that work?
That works for us, as long as
Okay.
we're in the time frame. Otherwise, I have to give an extension, and we'd be fine doing that as well.
Okay.
When are you going to Concom?
As I said, the wetland scientist started today, so
Oh.
we're hoping to submit in about a week and a half.
Okay. So it gives you probably 2.5, 3 weeks
Yeah.
right there then, okay. So you want to
So-
continue to May 8th then?
Yeah, if they're happy with that,
Okay.
we can put them on then.
Continue to May 8th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, you too. All right, moving forward, we'll go to our next initial public hearing, which would be for 25 Forge Parkway. Make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're all set. Just want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, of course. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, and I'm here with Mr. Matt Clark, the owner of TMC Holdings, the applicant on the project. Mr. Chair, I can go into a presentation. I know in the last one you went to the planner first at your direction,
Would
if
you?
you'd like.
What do you want?
I can, why don't we let him,
Okay,
give a
you want to
presentation.
give an overview of what you have, and then we'll circle back to everybody else, is fine.
Certainly. Very briefly, the owner is the occupant of the existing office building at 25 Forge Parkway, which is the existing building shown on the southerly portion of the plan. The application in front of you for this industrially zoned parcel is for the construction of a 16,000 square foot warehouse addition to the project and 17 parking spaces to support the warehouse use. The existing parking field, which ends approximately here where my hand is, would be expanded to the back of the site to allow for those 17 parking spaces to exist along the westerly sideline, and then open pavement area for movement, storage of mechanical equipment on the property associated with the warehouse development. Obviously, areas of the warehouse will be subject to tenant usage, so we know who we want to market towards, but we obviously don't have tenants. So a little bit of flexibility in terms of what the ultimate project will become here. Everything that we've provided for you on this plan under the site plan review application is in concurrence with the industrial zone standards in terms of setbacks for the proposed building, number of parking spaces, impervious lot coverage. I'm happy to walk through all of those features here with you. We do have one item noted is the amount of landscape area relative to the parking spaces that was raised by your peer review consultant through their peer letter. We're taking a closer look at that, and we can talk further about that at an upcoming hearing. Everything associated with this project, with this expansion, in terms of grading and stormwater is certainly subject to the Massachusetts stormwater standards, but also the local Franklin regulations relative to stormwater. And our plan here is intended to be in compliance with both of those. And again, a very similar situation, having received the peer review letter from your consultant, we have a couple of additional boxes that we need to check to make sure we can denote compliance. We are surrounded on the west and east of the site with wetland resource areas, bordering vegetated wetland, one that is associated with a pond to the east. We do have a conservation component here. We have started our notice of intent process with the Conservation Commission as of last week, and we are also undergoing a peer review process through them as well. So we're maintaining both of those simultaneously. Everything else that's in the plan, at the board's direction, I'm happy to walk through all of the details. I don't know how in-depth you want me to go this evening, but those are really the bones of the project. We have in our package correspondence from the town through Amy. We also have fire department concerns, so we would like to take the opportunity to address those between now and the next meeting, reach out to the fire chief, talk about his concerns in terms of access to the building. We're very confident that we can meet his requirements. We would just like to talk through those with him, having seen him just on letterhead today, or actually at the tail end of last week. Same is also true with your consultant, Mr. James. Thorough review on the application. As I mentioned, we have some boxes to check. I'm confident that we can certainly do that, and we look forward to working with him through the planner to address those comments prior to our next meeting.
All right, good, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go to Amy first. If, Amy, you want to give a quick overview to everybody?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you touched on most of it. They're proposing a 16,000 bay building with 17 additional parking spaces. They do have to file conservation, as they mentioned. Just wanted to note the proposed curbing is Cape Cod berm. Sometimes in the past they've looked for concrete. We need a landscaping plan that should be submitted, as well as he said he'd be addressing the concerns by the fire department. Not sure if you don't have a tenant, now you mentioned possible tenant, how that would affect parking, if depending on the tenant and if there's any office spaces in there versus warehouse or industrial. It might affect parking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mike, I guess we'll go to DPW if you want to comment.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as some of the previous, the presentation addressed some of the comments we made before, but just briefly regarding the stormwater. In addition, not increasing the peak rate of runoff, also need to verify that the volume of runoff is not leaving the site. We did have one concern with the location of the discharge point from the infiltration system. It's right at the property line. So we're just concerned about that with any flows coming out of that, even for the 100-year storms, make sure it's not causing any problems on adjacent property. The plans do call for plastic drainage pipe. Board typically requires reinforced concrete for that. Amy had mentioned the existing, the proposed berm around the parking area. There's one hydrant that's proposed to be removed where the addition's going. We just want them to, the applicant to just coordinate with the fire department and see if there's an additional hydrant needed. That's mainly it.
Okay, good, thank you. I guess we'll go to Gary. If you want to give us a run through yours as well, please.
I had a little bit of a long list.
Yeah, I would hit the bullet points if you want. There was quite a bit. I know there was a pretty substantial list. Touch upon some of the most major
On
ones.
the back left corner, if you look at the site, one of the issues that I came up with was the current site, pretty much all the curving, quite a bit of the curving is Cape Cod berm, and they were continuing that across. And I recommended that on the back side where they have that 2-to-1 slope, they have a wooden guardrail, but I think if we provide another 7-inch reveal associated with a vertical curve, just for safety's sake along those parking spaces, that was one of them. I also had the same comment relative to the discharge point, trying to pull it back away from it. The other issue I had, which is, I thought was one of the more significant ones, was it looks like some of the proposed additional impervious is actually going to come back into the existing site. And because of that, you lose your qualification under the redevelopment. And when I looked at this, I think part of this is I think you can actually provide us with a little bit of TSS, a little bit of treatment prior to discharge coming out on the Forge Parkway. And that was one of my recommendations, maybe look at a proprietary separator coming out of that manhole just before you get into the Forge Parkway. There's 2 manholes there. I think you could easily do a bypass and come into a proprietary separator and provide the treatment. And it would actually treat the entire site. Other than that, like I said, those were the primary major ones that I had.
Okay. And I know he's got some homework to do after that, but I just figured to touch upon the big ones that you
Yeah, those are the
Self-employed.
two big ones.
And
Like
we'll take a look at those comments. Comments well received in terms of the curbing. Obviously, we've put forth a design. We'll study, the safety aspect that your engineer has recommended. And then we'll also take a look at that TSS calculation and see what we can do to support that.
Okay, good. I guess I'll go to the board if anybody has any comments or questions. Jay, any?
Yeah, I actually have one. So, I looked at the infiltration chambers and the relative to the test pit data, and it's all starting to get kind of close to the within 2 feet of groundwater, 4 feet of groundwater potentially stuff. So if you run like a simple hydraulic gradient across the site, so you've got 295 up at the pond is that 295? Am I looking at that right? No, 285, I'm sorry. So you've got 285 up at the pond, and you've got about 280 down here. So running a hydraulic gradient across the site, just a simple, like one line, you've probably got 282 under the chambers for a groundwater depth. Obviously, you didn't explore that far down, right? And that's a pretty deep hole, so I'd understand why you didn't. But not knowing that, and running that hydraulic gradient is the best possible analysis on this, that would put it in 4 feet of the groundwater table, and then you're getting into the whole mounding analysis thing. So in lieu of either running a mounding analysis or exploring to a really stupid depth, would you guys be amenable to just like raising the bottom of the stone like 286?
Yeah, so through the chair, so excellent discussion point. Beta raised it as part of their review in terms of the depth of the test pits. So we are looking at whether a deeper test pit is warranted to confirm that water table elevation, or we can look at some modification to the elevation of the storm system.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed like a less financially burdensome of pain, really.
Yeah,
if it works for you guys.
No, if there's an opportunity to raise it, we'd look to do that. Obviously anything less than 4 feet, acknowledging we have to do a mounding analysis as part of the stormwater regulations. So we'll do any one or combination thereof as we review it further.
Perfect, thank you.
It's good
Thank you.
comment.
Oh, good, Jay?
Yeah, that was it.
Jay? Great. Willie?
I have a quick one. With the community planning letter, it says, additional parking spaces in a contractor yard. Is there going to be a contractor yard there?
I just want to confirm, so the letter you're referring to?
From the Department of Planning and Community Development, it talks about the 16,000 square foot bay building and additional parking spaces in a contractor yard. Just curious, what is the contractor yard? Heavy equipment or coming and going of what?
So it's equipment and palletized materials, so it's not stockpiles of loam, rock, sand, gravels, things that could otherwise be considered part of a contractor yard. We're not doing any of that here. It's just on-the-ground storage that would be removable with equipment.
And of course, during business hours?
Of course.
Okay, cool, thank you.
You got your question? All right. Well, go ahead.
So removable with equipment during business hours. So if it's a high bay warehouse, so it's stored internally then?
Some internal, but also external. So also on the pavement area that we're creating.
Where, could you point out where?
So we have areas that we can utilize. So obviously this is relegated to parking, but we would have areas here adjacent to the building that we could store some materials outside of the building.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
No problem.
Should wear my glasses.
Is that, I didn't catch it, was that area designated, like hashed out on the drawing specific to, and if not, could you? So it's not mixed up between parking?
It's not really like
Yeah, I
designated
just-
separately, it's just kind of like.
Yeah, I'd like to see.
It was
the
not
area
designated separately.
specific,
Yeah.
so it doesn't interfere with any of your parking, because you said
Sure.
you don't know who the tenant is. So, future, just so there's no confusion.
I guess that, for clarification on that, was it going to be fenced in separately, or is it just kind of, you could put it anywhere and then?
No,
parking?
it's open, it would not be fenced in. So it would not be demarked in the field, it would not be fence painted or otherwise. It's a general open area at the use and discretion of the tenant.
Okay. So I just had a couple quick questions.
Sure.
I see the dumpster containment areas, you have 3 large dumpsters, there's not gonna be contaminants or any hazardous waste, stored in them or discharged in them?
That is not our intention,
All
no.
right. I just wanna make clear of that as well.
Yes, sir.
So it's a change of use of the building, you're taking, what, 8,000 square feet out of the existing building, you're adding it to the warehouse space as I interpret it?
No, the existing building is remaining, and we're adding 16,000 square feet
Yeah, I
to the
think there was a
site.
note that you're taking 8,000 of the 16 of the initial building, is that correct?
Is that correct?
It says 8,000.
Oh,
So you're taking.
I apologize, sir. Yes,
Okay.
he's corrected me.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And then the curbing, where you're doing such a substantial amount of work, I would think just at the connection point at the front end of the building, keep it the Cape Cod, but then I would recommend either granite or reinforced concrete for the balance of the parking lot, as Gary recommended based on some of that. And based on the topos, you doing a gravel removal in there, where the addition is, by any chance?
There'll be export of the material, to
Approximately.
construct the site, but not gravel removal for saleable purpose, just
Okay.
incidental to the
So
creation of the lot.
approximately how many yards? What's our regulation, 1,500?
I think 1,000.
That's 1,000 or 1,500?
For ZBA.
It was 1,500.
I think it's 1,500. Anything over 15, you have to go to ZBA if you're gonna, unless it stays on site,
To
right,
remove.
Mike?
I will check, but is that, just to confirm, I think that's if you are specifically removing the material, but if it's
Correct.
incidental to the permit, to the building permit, I
Correct.
don't, is it?
Just wanna make sure you're not hauling off site. If you are over
You
15.
can't remove more, but
Correct.
if you remove and leave some, and it swaps itself out,
Right.
then you don't need the permit. But
I don't have the number, Mr. Chair, I will get you the number, we will
Okay.
confirm whether or not
Just-
that's required, but
Just-
understood and
just
acknowledged.
To keep it
Yes.
going.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I could just go back quick to this equipment and material storage area. Just looking at your plan, is there a way to kind of mark a drive aisle clear on here? Just,
Stripe it.
yeah, just to stripe a line, 'cause you don't.
That's why I was asking for the
Yeah.
designated storage area.
just
Sure.
Just to kind of differentiate between your drive aisle and where your limits of your storage area, I think would be helpful. So when you're storing, it doesn't end up being that you don't have your clear 19-foot
Sure.
Yeah.
space between where you're storing and where you're backing in and out for your parking spaces there. Would be helpful.
We can accommodate that request, we'll factor it into the
I think
plans.
that'll help fire department
Okay.
as well.
Maybe some hatching or something to,
Yeah, exactly. That's
Okay.
why I was asking about the designated area, so it's already set in stone.
Sure.
Okay, so you're all set with fire department, you'll be able to take care of their comments, right?
We would like to, I will
Yeah.
speak with him, and
Sure.
we'll talk through what exactly he needs and his
Process.
preferred access
Yep.
is, relative to the hydrant as well, the other comment that came
Correct.
up.
Okay.
Yes. We'll take
Um,
care of that for sure.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, so it looks like we'll be continuing, approximately how much time you think you're gonna need to iron out all the,
So we are in changes, so we apologize, so we didn't realize that Beta, they did a great job, their letter was dated March 13, we just found it at the end of the week, so we apologize, we would have had it addressed. So we're in progress on it now, we anticipate having changes done by the end of this week. I don't know if we were to get something to them, whether they would be able to comment in advance of the next meeting or not. So not to put you on the spot, team, if we get you something by the end of the week, could we have a productive discussion at our next meeting?
or would you wanna wait until the next one and just get 90% of it squared away? Between fire department,
That's,
DPW,
Conservation.
Beta,
Okay, I mean,
everybody.
that's fine.
You'll have a
That's
little bit more time to package it, does that help?
We're not looking
And
for a fire drill.
Conservation might take a little bit.
And, yeah, as well, excuse me, conservation.
So we're back in front of Conservation on April 6th, and they're undertaking their peer review as well. So if you wanted to target us for the meeting around that time.
Will any of these design changes directly correlate to
It won't take
Concom?
me long to do, no.
Okay.
I've been pretty good in terms of turning these around.
Yes.
So-
What's, next would be,
So, yeah, just, so typically the planning board wouldn't really make a decision until you've gotten through conservation to make sure conservation hasn't made any changes to the plans. So if you're at the 6th, that, our next meeting would be the 10th, so we wouldn't have any changes that you made. The meeting after that is April 24th, and then, so I don't know if that's more realistic for you, just to not have to make repetitive changes if you did get to conservation and then you came back to us so early and said, no, I gotta make these more changes.
I-
So
I
it's
think the 24th, I think, would probably be
Okay.
best for all parties.
that's kind of
Okay.
what I was getting to, so
Yeah.
you can
Mhm.
compile most of the information, so you can shorten it out.
I think we're close.
Okay.
I think we can
Yeah.
get there. There's a couple
Okay.
of conversations to be had, and that
Okay.
works well with the conservation schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, motion to continue to April 24th?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a
good
nice
evening.
night. Oops, I should have looked at the audience. Nope, okay. Anybody have any comments, questions?
I have something to bring up for discussion. Is there any way that we can make some sort of proposal to, I should back up. Our industrial zoning bylaw says that they can have up to 80% impervious coverage by right. We just saw 2 projects that are clear cutting forests for parking lots, but they're allowed to do it by right. Can we put something, or can we propose a change to our bylaws that requires some sort of planting or additional way to make up for all of that impervious coverage, or make up for all the clear cutting that's happening? It feels like not in the spirit of what our town is trying to get to from being a green community by allowing this type of clear cutting to happen in various developments, including industrial. I mean, I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, maybe I'm just crazy, but I don't know. I don't know if that's allowed, but
So maybe what you're thinking is something like tree-to-tree situation, or you beef up the landscaping?
yeah.
I know what you're
or-
saying,
or
like, we ran into that with our solar farms.
Right.
Nobody wanted to put anything in with solar farms, but I kept barking at it, and they finally
Right, I
put
mean,
bonding towards additional trees, but.
it just feels like either, 80%, you don't want to discourage development from happening, or, make a plot of land undesirable because people don't find that it'd be useful because they wouldn't have enough area for pavement or parking or driving their trucks or whatever, but at the same time, it just doesn't feel productive from an environmental standpoint to be completely clear-cutting forests to allow all of these industrial buildings and paved areas to happen. Like, feels like there should be some more give or take, and I get that we're addressing stormwater issues, but we're not, like, dealing with carbon offset and everything else that is impacted habitat by clear-cutting forests to allow for this to happen. So I don't know if this is the right format, but I just thought I'd bring it up to the group and see what.
So to present the devil's advocate argument, right?
Yeah.
At the opposite side of it. Obviously, we have to allow for use of property within the industrial zone, and that's where that impervious number comes from, is it's what's required for the full and proper use of that property to make it economically feasible to the property
Yeah.
that is developing and running it. So secondary to that, making a decision like that, I'd want to see some like data. Like, so how much industrial property is left in Franklin that hasn't been developed to the full 80%? What is that? How is that relative to other undeveloped properties in the area? How is that comparative to the total undeveloped property of Franklin? If we're starting to talk about like a little teeny fraction of a thing here, then we're pulling threads out of a sweater.
Yeah, no, but
So-
it just all adds up, I mean, right? So, and I'm sure there is data to back up like X amount of impervious area equals X amount of carbon impact, or, I don't know if the planning department has any type of data on that.
Are you thinking something like over a certain percentage? Like, say there's 50,000 square feet of asphalt down right now, and they trigger it to go up to 75 to 80. You're saying potentially that the additional 25 should have some kind of reclamation per se?
Yeah,
I mean,
or-
because if
or
you're
like-
adding,
or-
you're
or
only adding
it's-
10,000 square feet, that's marginal, but if you're ramping it up like this one potentially, you know, do you do a percentage of what's there to what you're taking out and then trigger a tree number at some sort of, I don't know, Mike and Gary, I'm sure Gary, you ran across this before.
This is almost like a wetland replication.
It's pretty high.
But just a tree,
Yeah,
just
just
a-
almost
yeah.
the same concept as a
Similar,
wetland
yeah.
replication. Like, we didn't have a wetland here, we're gonna put a wetland there. We didn't have trees here, we're gonna put trees
Right.
here, right?
yeah.
Right, and
It's similar to a caliper, you're
Caliper.
taking, you know,
Certain
a
size.
30-inch caliper tree out, and you're gonna replace it with 5
Right.
6s.
Right.
As an example, you can't do it one for one, but
Right.
Just to
a
understand
percentage.
before you go deeper.
No, admittedly, you know, part of the zoning, when you look at industrial zoning, the normal utilization rate is 80%.
Yep, yeah,
That's really industrial development.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen sites that have been 100% impervious,
mhm,
you know, historically, so the 80% was actually limited, so if you look at your zoning, the only way to limit it would be to try and reduce the overall percentage of impervious, try and get it down to 75 to 70%.
right. Or is there some, like, understanding again that there is a need for that 80% for industrial use? You know, also, it's very different if you're clear cutting a heavily wooded area compared to, you know, something that's already been cleared or that's being repurposed or redeveloped. That's a different situation. I'm talking like, yeah, if there's however many caliber trees that you're just cut, you know, is there some way to incentivize replacement of trees or, you know, beyond a certain caliber, basically make up for when densely wooded areas are clear cut to meet whatever percentage that is, even though it's allowed by right. I don't know if that type of incentive
It
could,
gets hard.
yeah,
It would really get hard, because the only way you have the ability to be able to limit would be within the limits of the zoning bylaws. So I understand what you're saying, you're looking at a carbon footprint and maybe climate resiliency, but I don't know how you, I mean, I have to go back and talk to, we have a climate resilience review
Yeah.
officer, I talk to her and see what she see what she thinks about maybe somehow tying it into a climate resiliency.
yeah, right, 'cause
Because that's really what you're saying, in other words.
yeah,
if
because it's
you're
just,
going
there's more
through-
impact than just stormwater, is that,
Yeah.
that's all. And we've seen between the project that was along the interstate over the past year, that, you know, that was a completely densely wooded site, that was, most projects that have come in front of us that are industrial projects, whether they're expansion of parking lot or brand new proposal, you know, what they're allowed to do by right doesn't, they're dealing with the stormwater, but they're not dealing with everything else that's impacted by clear cutting a heavily wooded area. And I just wonder what could be done to address
A way
that.
to do it is to look at our landscape bylaw, or landscape, what do we call it? The, requirements in our, sorry. Help me out here, guys.
I would say, yeah,
Planting.
planting schedule.
plantings.
Well, that's what I was wondering,
Yeah.
do you go a little bit of, you know, where you clear, say you clear cutting an acre.
Yeah,
Do you,
Screening.
do you,
There
do
we
you
go.
trigger it at, when you cut an acre, you turn around and replicate or put additional landscaping
Right.
throughout the site, if the site takes it?
So,
I'm
I
looking
have
at
a
it,
question for the two engineers.
Look in the mirror.
I'm technically not an engineer right now, right? So, Gary, do you have any prior experience with any sort of essentially forced replication bylaw, like in the same spirit of a wetland one? And Mike, what kind of an effort would it be to overlay just the industrial districts on a map for us? Like, go to Kate, whoever's running JS, and just have them like in a nice light pink, put on a map of the town where what is an industrial zone.
Just the industrial zone.
Just like so we can see what industrial looks like, and then visualize like, oh, here's industrial.
Well, that'd be on
Here's
We
the
have that in
relative.
the zoning book, it's
Easy,
right
it's
there.
pretty.
No, but that doesn't have an aerial. I want the aerial. I want an aerial.
Oh, over an aerial.
Yes, I
was
want
gonna
over an
say
aerial.
the gray is
To see what's
industrial.
So we can have like,
vegetated.
so
as
at least
opposed
we
to what's
have,
not.
so instead of going into some deep data-driven thing, we can like, oh, here's a visual, just a,
It sounds like, what if,
A quick and
it sounds
dirty
like what
visual.
you're looking at is just like how much more industrial is actually that's vegetated now could be developed further.
Correct.
Is it even
Yes.
worth looking at that?
Correct.
That's where you're kind of.
That's the
where
the
you're
road
going.
I'm looking down. And then to look more towards kind of what was suggested earlier, do you have any prior experience with any sort of application like a bylaw like this? Because I'm looking at that and then you're gonna, where in town are we gonna rip out impervious area and start replacing it with trees?
Jay, from an experience that I've had
Yeah,
at a
please.
site that we've developed for my job,
Mhm.
it was a large site that we were required to certain, and I actually can reference a bylaw, I'll
Yep.
find it. It was trees over a certain caliper size. We had to actually pay to have a forester,
Tag,
whatever
Yep.
they're called,
Yep.
come in.
burst.
Thank you. My brain is not finding words tonight. Count trees.
Mhm.
Yep.
So they physically came in and did multiple acres and counted any tree over a certain caliber. And we had to replace those trees and or pay into a fund for the town to provide them elsewhere.
But my question is, where's the elsewhere? That's the functional question.
That elsewhere was determined by the town.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
question that we
Sure.
need to resolve if
Yeah.
we do this, right, is,
It
so
wasn't
if we're gonna.
necessarily in the industrial area.
Oh, but it has
Yeah.
to be within town, right? Because we
Yeah,
can't
oh,
do like.
yeah. No, no,
So,
no,
but
yeah.
that's my question is like hypothetically, you'd have to then purchase other impervious area and remove it.
Or supplement somewhere that we
Or-
wanted to put
or just
trees.
open-
Yeah, like a tree line
Yeah.
road
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they say the power company came in and.
See, a tree on the
cleared.
road doesn't seem like to be the full intent of all this to me.
No, it's to, as Jen is pointing out, supplement in industrial areas that you're clearing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. In function, we're looking to actually say like, you impacted X square feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Go and replace Y square feet.
like
Yeah.
a.
Where are we,
yeah.
where are we finding Y
And it-
square
yeah.
feet is the ultimate question.
But the fund could be used anywhere throughout the course of
Yeah.
town, though. That's
Yes.
the difference, that's the next level it could go.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I think it'd be worth looking at, I'd like to see if there is a bylaw, I don't know if this was Walpole, Foxborough?
Nope,
Mansfield?
nowhere near here, so.
Okay, all right, well,
I'm not
anyway,
gonna, I don't
I was
wanna-
making
yeah.
assumptions, but anywhere, wherever it exists, as an example, but I think that we should consider, as a town that's a green community, our impact on the environment more so than just stormwater.
I will say for the devil's advocate side of things, as the developer in that instance, it was an expense that
Yeah.
drove up the cost of the development. So if, as a community, they don't wanna drive up the cost for somebody looking to develop in our industrial areas and we're trying to increase our tax base, wasn't beneficial.
Yep.
From the green side of thing, I understand what you're saying, so pros and cons.
That's why maybe a
Yeah.
percentage of how much area is
Right.
affected would trigger this
Right, or it
tree
doesn't necessarily have to be
replication
one,
per se. That's all.
it doesn't necessarily have to be like 1-for-1, or, I don't know, is there some,
Yeah,
is
you'll
there
never get-
anything?
you'll never get one for
that,
one.
right? But like,
You can't do.
You'll never get one for one,
but is
but
there
you,
something that we
We're
could
looking
do?
at replacing trees with trees right here, right, because of a carbon impact. Is there something else that is potentially applicable rather than a tree? If we're looking at carbon impact, if you take out X amount of trees, we'd like to see certain green
Do a little
technologies
rain
used.
garden
We would
or
like to
like
see
a-
like
yeah.
X amount of trees automatically trigger, you have to be LEED certified at the lowest level. So there's other ways that we
Ways to
can
do
look
it.
at carbon credits that aren't tree for tree, square footage for square footage, right? So if you impact this amount, we would like to see solar panels provide such and such wattage to your property. So there might be more than one way to skin this cat. If
then
we
they gotta
start
clear
thinking
more
a little
land to put solar panels in.
Or, nope, they could put it
Put it
on
on
top
the
of that
roof, put it
16,000
behind the
square
parking, right?
foot high bay warehouse.
If,
that-
if your parking exceeds this square footage on a site, you therefore have to put in X number of solar panels over your park. So try to offset
Offset.
the carbon in that, if we decide to go that route, right? Because we might look at it, and Mike might say, there's 100 acres left in town that we can clear, this is pointless,
Yeah.
right?
It's a good thought to think
Yep.
about.
So, yeah, lots of
So
stuff to think
if
about.
Gary, if you could do.
I know a community
Wiring?
that does have a
Okay.
tree bylaw. I will copy it and send it to Amy so you can distribute it. It's probably the most difficult one I've ever had to deal with in terms of representing the development community, so
Okay.
take a look at it.
Thanks.
'Cause
I think it would just also help to also have something more concrete than our, what is our 7 things that impact every project that are very, very subjective, like, is this going to affect, the whatever of the town, or change the it's very subjective, our
Special
project
permit.
impact statement. So to have something a little more concrete to say, oh, actually, we're gonna do this because of this, and not just have it be a personal opinion about an impact of a project, it would be helpful, I think.
Well,
All right,
guideline.
anyway.
Yeah, Okay.
Talking about the special permit.
Amy, did you
Yeah,
have any
special permit
comment
conditions,
in
sorry.
reference or no?
No,
Okay.
nothing tonight.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Very efficient meeting, good job.
Yeah, sorry for.
If you're a veteran, Massachusetts offers useful information for you at these websites, massvetsadvisor.com and mass.gov/veterans. To learn more, email the Franklin Post of the American Legion at mapost75@gmail.com. A broadcasting outreach of Franklin.tv. You're listening to WFPR-LP, Franklin on 102.9 FM. You can listen online at WFPR.FM. Thanks for being with us.
Welcome to our journey. Our journey toward a more perfect union. Our more perfect union is an experiment, a grand experiment in something we all cherish, democracy. Welcome to our Radio Roundtable with higher education consultant Dr. Michael Walker-Jones, Harvard's Executive Director for Health and Human Rights, Dr. Natalie Alinos, and from Beacon Hill, Representative Jeff Roy, as we the people celebrate the journey of America